The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Size Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull Kia Rovers Forever members. Good evening and good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to the Robin Pod, wherever and whenever you are tuning in. The game's now coming thick and fast with our round 3 encounter with Salford just around the corner. Joining me to preview that game and to look forward look back at the Robins' 10th victory over Wakefield is former Robin Pod host Joe Appleyard. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Steve Till as he once again joins me for Robins Revisited. And we answer all your questions in question time. Joe, welcome back to the Robin Pod.
No, good to be back on, mate. Obviously, last time we spoke, it was before the Amsterdam Challenge, and now we're round 2 and still 100%. So happy days, and looking forward to speaking some rugby league again. Plenty of hot topics to discuss as always on this Tuesday night.
Yeah, Joe, you're popular. Was you on the Castleford podcast the other week?
Yeah, I was. I keep getting asked. I can't stay away from it, can I? I say to my mates, so I'm not going to bother this year. I'm just going to be a fan. And then I think I've done 4, including Umberside as well in the past 2 months. But it's always nice to still be involved and chat rugby league. Obviously, it's not my job anymore, but still love, speaking about it and doing podcasts as a hobby. And it's always good to come back on the show, which we both started in 2021.
Yeah, well, I just want to give a shout out to one of my followers on X, or one of my supporters. Now, he just happens to be a Hull FC fan, Daniel DJ Jordan. I did say I'd give him a shout out after he said it's pointless trying to have a sensible conversation with this pod now. Gone right downhill since that decent bloke left who used to host.
Hey, tell you what, that's my dad's burner account. That I pay him a tenner every time he messages you.
So I did say tune in, I'll give you a shout out, and don't forget to submit your questions for question time. So I'll see if he has put anything for us to answer. All joking aside, Joe, the Robins fresh from a 14-12 victory over Wakefield. Another tight, maybe not scrappy encounter, but intense. I think a game that Willie Peters will be pleased about in terms of what Wakefield threw up and the facts of where the Robins are. What did you make of it?
I think I saw a lot of people overreacting, and I don't really understand why. Look, mate, it's round 2. Is it amazing rugby league at the minute? No. Was the Castleford game and Wakefield game in the grand scheme of things a classic? Absolutely not. But what Rovers have done is they've grinded out 2 wins against a Castleford team that needed a response, and they had a lot of ex-Robins in there who wanted to prove a point. And then you've gone to Wakefield, who were fresh off getting promoted, beating Leeds at Headingley in their derby in round 1. So there was really up for the challenge, and they've got a good team. There's not many mugs in this Super League, and to go away on a Thursday night, I know it's that old adage, can they do it on a Thursday night, blah blah blah, but Rovers have ended up grinding out a really tough victory. And yes, it wasn't appetizing on the eye, and we haven't scored free-flowing tries, but what we have done is was kind of under the caution with being a bit resilient in defence. I don't think our attack's anything special at the moment, but I'm really impressed with the way we're defending, especially on a few of them shift plays, barring that try in the last minute for Wakefield. But look, we're still 100%. There's a lot of teams who will be dying to be in that position still after 2 games, and picked up a few injuries along the way, but the Robins are still, doing okay. We're ticking along nicely. And we've got to remember as well, we have lost some big players, and we've mixed up the team a little bit. That cohesion's going to take a while as well. So we did it last year, didn't we? Even though we beat Hull and Leeds a little bit more comfortably, we wasn't playing amazing rugby in them opening rounds, and look what happened. So I don't think people should start worrying too, at the moment, saying, oh, we're not the side we was, because they look at, Wigan got beat in round 1. Warrington looked amazing. Catalan aren't off the board yet. It takes a while, and we're still picking up them points. So as we can continue doing that, I don't think there's any reason to be worried.
No, you mentioned the attack, Joe, and obviously that wasn't helped by the surprise omission of Tyrone May, who succumbed to injury. I think it was a hamstring injury that's kept him out, of course. We'll talk about the Salford game and his chances of playing later on in the Robin Pod. Obviously, Tyrone May came back later than anybody else for the side. The fact he's picked up a hamstring injury is disappointing, but like you said, we're still trying to find them partnerships. That would have helped against Wakefield or someone like that missing.
100%. And you know what? When I was driving down to Wakey and I was listening to Humberside before the game, and Nick Pinkney came on and said, "Oh, we think Hiku's playing in the halves," and I was a bit like, "Oh no, what we're doing here?" Personally, I'd like Broadbent in the halves and Hiku out wide. I understand why he's done it, because he's kind of seen Hiku as that runner, anti, but he didn't really get involved with the ball, did he, Petter? His contributions were a little bit limited in the halves, and if when we speak about the Salford game later, I'll say what prediction I'd like him to go with. But it was losing Tyrone May obviously didn't help. Him and Mikey Lewis have trained together. We didn't have the beauty of having Danny Richardson to be called back at that point because it was a little bit late, and he trained with Huddersfield during the week, and we kind of had to bring him back a few hours beforehand, so he couldn't have got registered to play. But well, they did okay, but it's never nice losing your half-back, and obviously we've lost our other half-back, even though it's good news with Mikey in the grand scheme of things. But Rovers, obviously, we've lost 2 players so far, and it's your 6 and 7, so that's never easy. And cohesion, I mentioned that word again, that takes a while, even if it's your first team half-back pairing, never mind if now you're talking about putting a Broadbent, Richardson, people like that in. So, look, they've grinded it out, but for me, I don't think... I think I'd like to change it up again this week, but Petter did a decent job, and obviously Mikey, when he was on, I thought again was probably our best player.
Yeah, I bet if I told you that Tyrone May won't be playing, and neither would Danny Richardson, I bet you'd still think of 3 other players to play in front of Petter Hiku in that position. So it was a surprise to me, and I bet it was a surprise for most Robins when I saw him line up there. But he did play. You only have to look at his running meters, what he made, that he played a different type of role, and it was very much about getting Lewis the ball. We saw that with his kicking game, didn't we? How pivotal Michael Lewis was to the side on Thursday night against Wakefield, let alone his try, what he scored, the way that he controlled the side at times. But that opening 20 minutes was intense, wasn't it? It's probably a good opening 20 minutes for the Robins in terms of they need to have it tough in these early games, I think, and Wakefield definitely brought that. Despite, as well, don't forget, they did have a number of players missing through injury.
Yeah, they did. And you know what? They're a good team, aren't they? I listened to you actually on the Wakey podcast a few hours before, when I was at work, before I drove to the ground, and obviously them guys were really excited about the season, and rightly so. They've got a good team. I thought Ollie Pratt, who obviously scored the try in the last minute, I thought he had an absolute worldie against Gildart at times, and the meters he made was incredible. But they've got some decent players. They've got some old stalwarts in there, and I think that they're doing things. They're ticking along nicely, aren't they? And I don't think that they're now the Wakefield whipping boys that there was a few years ago when there was in Super League before relegation. I'm tipping them to have a really good year, and I think there'll be plenty of teams that go to Bellevue this year and don't pick up the 2 points. And I think even this week against Saints, that could be an absolute cracker. But yeah, we did that first 20 minutes, really impressed. And even though you've got to spin it on its head, haven't you? We're not playing attractive rugby at the minute, but what we are doing is we are dominating the ruck. We are getting some decent kicks away. We're completing. We're playing a bit NRL style. And although that's maybe a bit boring sometimes, Rovers seem to love playing like that. Willie Peters seems to love playing like that. And ultimately, at the end of the day, pal, if it gets you 2 points, it gets you 2 points, doesn't it? But yeah, we're slowly getting into that ground now, aren't we? And getting back to what we enjoy doing, being in control, what we can control. Willie loves that saying, doesn't he, in the press? But I think apart from a few moments of madness and a few lapses in defence against Wakey, I did think overall we controlled it, and I was quite comfortable, barring that last 5 minutes, obviously, when we was down to 12 men and they got a bit of a roll on. But there wasn't a moment where I thought, oh God, we're really struggling here. I thought the pack, especially JWH and Jesse Sue, I thought were absolutely great at times and dominated and got us on the front foot. And when Jez came on, I thought we could really see a difference with a pack.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's just focus on that 20 minutes, because what I want to mention with that is Michael McAlorum. It's a player that you've already mentioned, and he is coming in for a bit of criticism from certain quarters in terms of his contribution and what he's bringing to the side. And I think sometimes it's a bit lazy, isn't it, to compare like for like. Obviously, we've lost Matty Parcell, who is potentially one of the best, or if not the best, hooker we've had in our Super League era. But McAloram's coming to a different type of job. Jez Litton's now expected to do a different type of job. And I think that them opening 20-minute spells, what we saw against Castleford and Wakefield, is why he's starting. You know, he's aggressive, he's tough, he fronts up in defence. He's not afraid to put his body on the line. And I think that's what Willie Peters is looking for at this stage of the season, especially in the early stages of games.
Mate, if anyone thought a 36-year-old Mickey McAlorum was going to come in and replace like for like Matt Parcell, then you could try and have a bit of a word with yourself. Do you know what I mean? I understand the criticism. For me, at the moment, he's struggling in attack. His distribution's not amazing at the minute, and there's plenty of times where like a Jared or Jesse Sue are getting to run onto the ball on the pump, and it kind of stagnates because it's a bit of a poor distribution. What I will say about him is his defence is absolutely cock on, and there is, when Batchelor missed that tackle and he made that on the line, that went so under the radar in the first half, and he's very dogged. Obviously, he concedes a few penalties and he got a yellow card, which for the life of me, I've watched it back, Chris. I don't know why it's a yellow card. We go on about the game being soft, don't we? And I think that epitomises it. People putting their hands up.
The only one I'd say on that, Joe, I was going to say the only thing I'd say about the yellow card is, if it was the other way around and McAlorum was maybe the opposition player, it might be one where we go, he's gone with his slip. But at the time at the game and watching it back on the highlights, I'm like you. I thought it was very, and Willie Peters, he thought it was a soft one as well.
By the law, of course, it's a yellow card. It's that new rule in it. But you just think, the player had fallen. It wasn't malicious, in my opinion, and maybe that is with red and white tinted glasses on. But I've watched it back, but by the back, Rovers managed to hang on. But to go back to Mickey Mac, I think he is a little bit rusty in attack. But what he is making up for is his line speed, his aggression. He's acting as another middle. And when I always put my team selection out, when they put the 21 out, I had a lot of people today saying Jez needs to start. Jez needs to start. I understand why, because Jez is playing out of his skin at the minute, but he's playing out of his skin coming off the bench. Again, especially against Salford, who haven't got the biggest pack. If Mickey Mac, these teams like Salford, where you can have a McAlorum who can go as a prop for 20 minutes, and then when they start ringing the subs, you've got Jez Litton to come on. That's an absolute game changer. So for me, I'm still continuing with McAlorum. Defence, absolutely sound. Attack, just distribution and a little bit of pace in and around that first marker could be a little bit better. But he'll get there. He's still learning. Obviously, the new tricks and trades of being a Robin first year at a club. And obviously, even at 36, it takes time to adapt, doesn't it?
Yeah. Little quiz question for you here, Joe. There was one play. Now, this is from Super League Match Centre. These are the stats. So they're not always the most accurate, based on the fact that I think Castleford had a completion rate of something like 114% when they played Rovers. But there was one player on the pitch who had an average gain of only 1 metre. And I'll give you a clue, it wasn't a Rovers player.
Oh, 1 metre. I'm going to say that kid with a ponytail off the bench, Fawasi, whatever he's called.
No, I thought it was quite good when he came on. I didn't mind him. No, it was Mason Lino.
Really? What an average did he get? To be fair, I think if Truman might have played, it could have been a little bit different. I think he stagnated him a bit, especially his kicking game and a few of them late passes. I think he was way off. And I'd seen a few Wakey fans saying, it was great a few years ago, but for where they're at now and what they want to be, I don't think he's really up to that standard. And yeah, he had a bit of a Tony Blair, didn't he?
Yeah, and then there's another player, Joe, who actually did worse than that, who made no meters in the game. Who was that?
No meters in the game? Well, I don't know. Did they not use a sub? I'm trying to. Is it Harvey Smith? Harvey Smith?
If the stats are to be believed, McAlorum didn't make 1 carry.
Oh, really?
And he was on the pitch for, how many minutes was he on? He was on the pitch for 33 minutes.
And didn't. Surely they're accounting like when he takes it from dummy half. But again, them Super League match centres, like you said, Castleford completed 38 out of 30, didn't they, last week? So
yeah, and I'm raising that point not to detract from what he's in the team to do, but just to probably highlight the fact that you said in attack and the difference between him and Litton and the reason why they're spelled like they are. Because Litton, there's no doubt that he's brought on to bring that bit of X back to that pace around the ruck, to bring that speed, that direction. McAlorum's very much about helping us get into the game, lay a foundation to then go and play.
Yeah, of course he is, and especially in them big games, even like if you play in the Derby or Wigan or somebody, a big team where that first 20 minutes is the arm wrestle. do you need Jez exerting his energy and maybe trying something when it's not on, or do you need Mickey Mack to take a bit of flack, get some shots in, just pass it to the props, get it out, let's go for all sets, and then when the fatigue starts to kick in, that's when you bring Jez on in it. So for me, I think it's right at the moment. It's not perfect, and it's definitely not fluid as it could be, but again, that'll only come in time, and I'd be very surprised if McIlroy didn't start against Salford on Thursday.
Yeah, Mickey Mack, he's picked up 4 disciplinary points. He had 2 separate charges from the game, a grade B head contact, which gained him 3 points, grade A dangerous contact, which gained him 1 point. Fortunately, he escapes a ban because you've got to get to 6 points before you are suspended. So he's good to go for the game against Salford. Another starter, Joe, I want to mention, and of course has come with big raps, is JWH. Castleford game, he played roughly about 33 minutes. He played 35 minutes against Wakefield, which in some quarters may not sound quite a lot, but it's what he does in them minutes, which I think is so important. 71 metres from 9 carries, 14 tackles from middle, which is pretty decent. I don't think he's feeling his way into the game, and he's not sensational, but I tell you what, he's doing the job he needs to do for his team right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen opposition fans going, where's this enforcer? All right, then just let him take someone's head off and get a 10-match ban if that's what we want, if people are being daft. No, he's not been amazing, but what he is doing, I thought his second stint, him and Jesse Sue really got us back into that game, because that was when we was under the cosh. He's very conserved at the minute, apart from that when he had a little bit to do with Matty Staunton and that, didn't he? And he kind of was getting riled up and everyone was getting excited. But no, I'm liking it. I think people are daft if they thought he was going to break through tackles every single time he gets the ball, or literally wipe someone off every time he tackles someone. What he does do is he win the floor a lot. He gets 3 or 4 defenders on him, which leaves the markers open. And especially when Jez is on the pitch, we can exploit that A and B marker. Especially, we did it in the second half at Wakey a few times, where they'd take 4 or 5 men to take JWH. Yeah, they'd put a big hit on him, and Wakey'd get riled up thinking they've just smashed one of the best props ever to play in the NRL. But the bigger picture is we've then took 4 markers and 2 A defenders out, and we've got a bit of a shift play on there. So if you look at it like that, I think him and Jesse Sue are working really well together. My only issue is, I don't know if I'd like to see maybe a JWH with Dean Adley or Jesse Sue with Whitbread instead of having Whitbread and Adley on at the same time, because I do think them 2 are more workhorses where it takes away the punch. Whereas if you had one of each, maybe that could be a bit of a master stroke. But we're not Willie Peters, are we? And obviously we are still 100%. But I just think maybe it'd help if we had more of an efficient prop and then a buster like a JWH or Jesse Sue. But that's just my opinion at the end of the day.
Well, that was one of the questions that I was going to ask you, actually, Joe, about the spelling of the forwards. Because obviously, when you look at the bench for the game against Wakefield, Litton, obviously, but then Hadley, Whitbread, and Tanganoa. And it's interesting how Willie Peters is spelling them at the moment. You mentioned Whitbread and Hadley. You can see that middle spell of the game. He's looking maybe for their engines to keep that intensity going. He's looking for the punch from Whitbread, from Hargreaves, and Sue, and being able to drag players in. And then obviously you've got Tanganoa now coming on and adding that punch, and he did it again against Wakefield, where he came on, made some really good meters in just a few carries. So he's given himself a lot of options there. It's just how he spells them, which is interesting for me.
He's moving Batchelor to the middle, isn't he? When he brings Tanganoa on, Batchelor's acting like a prop, and I know he did an interview saying he's happy to play there and stuff. So that's a bit of a new transition as well. So the pack is getting a bit of a reshuffle. I'd like to see Kalepi play a little bit more. I think he's great when he's on. I just don't think he gets enough minutes, and I understand why Willie loves to run with that 4th prop, but I don't think he can have someone as good as Kalepi Tanganoa just playing that 10-15 minute spell. I mean, I understand why he's doing it, but sometimes I think there is times, even this season, where it's been a bit like, we're a little bit flat in the middle, even if you bring him on for 10-15 and bring him back off and then put him back on at the end. But these are just little things that are tweaking. This isn't complaints, is it? Because we're not losing, and we're just we've got high expectations, haven't we? And we want obviously Rovers to win, and we want to utilise every single player we've got. One player, obviously going a bit off topic, Chris, I just wanted your thoughts on it. Reece Martin doesn't seem to be getting up to standard at the moment. I don't think he's touching the ball enough, apart from his goal kicking. I can't remember, and a bit of, them few trials at York. Thought he struggled in his first 2 games, personally. When I say struggled, I don't mean he's been poor, but, he hasn't really got used to it yet. But then I suppose, is it because he's playing a bit of a different structure now? Leeds are a bit more free-flowing, whereas we're playing more of an NRL style. I don't know. I just wanted your thoughts, because I've seen a few people say, you don't really know he's on the pitch at the moment, barring when he gets a field goal or a conversion attempt. Sorry.
Yeah, I tell you what, Joe. I mean, ball in hand, I think he's. It's still work in progress in terms of that edge. I think they're still working that combination out. In terms of his contribution on the pitch, though, 46 tackles again. Against Wakefield, 50 tackles against Castleford, 3-from-3 with the kicks against Wakefield. Of course, he got 1 against Castleford. He didn't get 100% there, but I think he's a player where you can't. He'll be one where sometimes he'll go under the radar a little bit like Batchelor last season, where probably didn't hit the heights that we expected. But for what he brings in terms of his leadership and obviously his defensive work right now, I think he's a player who's going to grow in that position. He does bring so much, and I think when you've got someone like the Papua New Guinea captain there, we saw what he did for Leeds. I think he's going to be one player who is in that team 100%. Only injury will keep him out, and I think we've been spoiled a little bit, haven't we, with last season, some of the games where we put big points on teams. We're not going to run away with every game, and I think while we're in that grind in this early stage of the season, I think Martin, he's just going to take be a bit of a slow burner in terms of attack. But hey, if he keeps slotting over the goals, he's going to be worth his weight in gold come the end of the season.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, his stats in defence speak for himself. It's just probably it's us in it nitpicking, trying to think of how can we improve and stuff like that. I think
that's the level we're at now, isn't it? That is the level we're at.
Mate. I've noticed as well, they do like to hit that front man a lot on the other side, whereas with Martin, I'd like to see him hit a few more of them lines like he did for Leeds. But again, that's growing in it, and it doesn't help with Tyrone and Mikey getting injured and things like that. So it is a knock-on effect, and yeah, he'll. I think his boot will be vital, especially in them summer months as well. He seems to really, for Leeds over the years, in that middle part of the season, he really seems to kick on. So again, continuity, get him a few more minutes under his belt, and I'm sure we'll see the Reece Martin we kind of loved and a bit loathed at Leeds because he was so good.
Yeah, and talking about that engine room of Martin, Batchelor, Minchella. I mean, like I said, Martin 46 tackles, Batchelor 43, Minchella 45. Minchella with 98 metres, Batchelor 91 metres. So they're getting through some work. And I think it's almost a position that Willie Peters doesn't need to worry about. He's got the players there in terms of second row loose forward. He's obviously got the option to change the dynamic of that by bringing Tanganoa on and then adding a bit more punch. But they lay the platform, I think, for the rest of the side. And Minchella, he's someone who just goes about his business so well. I think he's you can tell he's really took on that leadership, and it must be tough for him in there as well with having Martin, Warra-Hargreaves, and going back to Warra-Hargreaves, Joe. I listened to the match review that the Wakefield Trinity Heritage podcast did, and they said they were sat right behind him in the stand when he came off. So he didn't sit down. It was like they had another coach there. He was constantly talking to the players. He was giving pep talks to the players who were coming about to be interchanged. And that is, I think John Wells mentioned in commentary when I watched it back, he's a Monday to Friday player as well. It's not just what he does on the pitch. It's everything that he brings to that side. And I think we mentioned it when you came on the podcast previously about him, these leaders that we've got in the side now. Yeah, we might not be banging loads of points on the board right now in these early stages of the season, but these all heads have been here before. They know how to build a side. And I think Willie Peters has got the utmost faith and trust in these players, which is why supporters, we are nitpicking because we're looking for, well, what can we do more? What can we get better at? And I think it's just, let's be patient because it will come.
Absolutely. Like I said, it's first 2 rounds. There's people like Catalan who are on 0 points, Salford who are on 0 points. We're killing for a win already. So we're in a fortunate position to be 2 from 2. And again, they haven't been extravagant results, and we haven't come away from going, bloody hell, we're class again, aren't we? But what we have come away with is thinking, yeah, we'll work for each other again and we'll grind. And in the past, we have gone to teams like Cass and Wakey and being absolutely had our backsides handed to us, whereas now, even if they're throwing the kitchens in, because we've got to remember as well, we're not Hull KR of 4 or 5 years ago where we're the whipping boys. We're now Hull KR, the grand finalists, so everyone wants to beat. We've got the most hated player in Super League, who every fan base absolutely can't stand and wants to kill. We've got the prop forward who everyone thinks is going to get banned for the rest of his life. We've got a team and fan base who nobody likes in Super League. So people are raising the game, but so are we. So it's good to see. And do you know what? Being hated, it's actually, we've got quite a good team to have that, because we've got players like a Jesse Sue, like a Jared and Tyrone, who people that will thrive on it, will thrive on that hatred. And that's what I'm kind of liking at the moment, and just seeing how rattled, that word that I hate, but how rattled people are by everything Hull Kingston Rovers do. So yeah, people are always going to raise our game against us. That's my original point, and we've got to be ready for that. And if we can go to teams like Wakey and come away with a narrow victory, great, it's 2 points. We move on and we'll go on to the next round.
Yeah, well, we're going to come on to a player that people seem to love to hate very shortly. Very quickly, Matty Staunton, I'm a former Robin. I thought he played very well, and I think he looked like the player that we probably thought he would. I mean, he's put performances like that in for Robins, of course he has, but that was an 80-minute performance for Wakefield, and the Wakefield fans were absolutely loving what he did against the Robins.
Yeah, do you know what? There's probably no secret that if there wasn't a salary cap, or if Rovers didn't go the way they did, he'd probably still be there. And Willie Peters and Matty Staunton have both said, aren't they, there's no hard feelings. It's a salary cap sport. We couldn't have kept him. But he was a great player. I liked him at Rovers. You know, he wasn't amazing, but he always did a job. And you know what? He's only 24, 25. He's now got a chance to become the main man in that pack. And you know what? He's got a really good chance of doing it. And you can see how he was a lot fitter than the other Wakefield props I noticed. And that's probably because he's been at the Robins for a few years. But yeah, I thought it was great, and he's going to be vital for them this year. Obviously, they've picked up a few injuries in the likes of Rodwell and Griffin, aren't they, in the pack at the moment? So they're doing a little bit tough in the middle unit. But yeah, fair play to Matty Staunton. You could tell he wanted to prove a point, and yeah, he did. And you know, best of luck to him. He's never going to be one of them players who you boo or you go, who used to play for a big club, all that rubbish. He's a player who you think, you know what, did a really good job for Rovers, and you know, hopefully he gets a chance to become a bit of a mainstay at Wakey, and he's definitely got the capabilities to do it now. He's coming into his prime.
Well, the way we cherry pick their best players, he'll probably end up back in a few years' time.
Yeah, so I was going to say we have to give them 1 or 2, don't we? Because we seem to nick everybody else from them.
Yeah, so who knows? We may see him back. Dean Hadley, we mentioned him, 200 appearances. Congratulations to him. Another player who hit a significant milestone was new recruit Tom Davis. He scored his 100th career try. He was the Sky man of the match, 1 try, 2 tackle bust, 23 carries, 183 metres, 8-metre average gain. I think, Joe, what people are pleased about is the metres from the back line, that 183. I hate it when Willie Peters gets asked nearly every press conference about Ryan Hall. Seems to be in there every time, doesn't it, about how we're replacing him. And I think it's a bit unfair on Tom Davis to almost pigeonhole him as a like for like, because I think he brings different qualities into that side, especially in attack. But he did front up against Wakefield, and he gave us the meters and the platform, and he came up with a try. I mean, do you think that was a planned move for the crossbar? Are you having that? Or do you think it was just putting some chaos and seeing what happens there?
Maybe a bit of both. I mean, they might have gone for it. Maybe if it was never going to, you know, you can't really predict that it's going to land perfect for us. But
and it could go 2 ways as well, because if the Wakefield player catches it,
Oh, if Tom Johnson or something catches it, it's the other way around, isn't it? So you kind of ride your luck with that. But no, to Tom Davis, again, I thought, you know, Mikey was good, obviously, apart from when he got injured and had to come off. But I thought Tom Davis overall was our best player. What he did out of backyard really helped us. And you know what I like about him? His little shimmies when he go into contact. He'll win us a lot of penalties this year. Very similar to like a James Donaldson. He's very hard to tackle underneath the restrictions. And yeah, I thought he was brilliant. Got us on the front foot. Never took a backward step, always there to make 2 carries in a set. And I thought Bear just and Avald wasn't amazing, and out the back three, and I thought Davis kind of made up for it and stood up and be counted for, and he saved the bacon a few times in them backline carries as well. So yeah, fair play to him. Good to see him. Obviously, he has got a big shoes to fill, and he will get compared to Ryan Hall a lot. Again, different side. Don't really like the fact he is, but you kind of come into that, and he'll probably expect it, and hopefully he can relish it because he's got the chance to be really good at Rovers, and I like his style of play. Struggled last year at Catalan, so hopefully he's got a bit of a new lease of life, and he can Thursday's game can kind of kickstart him now when he's settled in red and white, and he can go again on Thursday and for the rest of the year because he's definitely got the talent and to be really potent on that wing.
Yeah, and he did an interview in the press earlier last week, and he was saying about how much he's enjoying his time here so far. He's moved to the area, I think, and he's settling in very well. So that all bodes well for the future, doesn't it? We'll look at the one of the big talking points of the game, Joe, which is of course occurred in the first half. That was Mikey Lewis. Most supporters of other opposition Super League sides thought he stamped down hard on a Wakefield player. He should have been suspended, probably banned for life. Funnily enough, the match review panel didn't pick up on that, and Mikey Lewis had no case to answer. What did you make of it?
Sorry, there we go. Do you know what I think, mate? Again, I mentioned it before. It's funny how hated he is, and do you know what? You can understand why, because if he was in a different shirt, you would, wouldn't you? But I just think he's absolutely great, and to say stamped heavy on Harvey Smith, a little bit laughable. Look, people are dying for him to be injured. People are dying for him to be suspended. Let's just laugh at it and go, do you know what? If you think that, then that's absolutely fine. We'll carry on doing what we're doing. Ultimately, Wakey fans, Hull fans, Leeds fans, anyone can say what they want about it. The match review panel have said it was absolutely nothing. Harvey Smith ended up coming out and saying there was absolutely nothing in it. So, yeah, I'll agree with them too. But again, I just think the refs have got to be careful on situations like this, because like him getting dragged and 3 players running in, you're a rugby player. You're not just going to stand there and let people do that to you. He's going to retaliate, and then people are going, like John Wells, he actually said this, John Wells, he went, he's got the potential to be a generational talent. If he stops this, well, the hell, what is he now then if he's not a fucking generational talent? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't get it. People are just waiting for him to mess up and stuff like that. And, like I said, people are targeting him. I just hope the refs, when he does give it a little bit back, don't just jump in and go, Mikey, you can't be petulant, blah, blah, blah. Because if people want to give it to him, then let him be able to have his say back. And yeah, obviously we're going to move on to his injury soon, but I didn't think there was anything in it. But I understand maybe why they've given the penalty, because there was a bit of play acting and blah, blah, blah. But it could have easily gone the other way, and I just think, yeah, maybe a little bit careful. But bloody hell, if you've got 4 big blokes running at you and trying to guard you, do you know what I mean? You're not just going to stand there and take it, are you?
No, and I think that's it. You're getting ragged around. You're going to shoot. He's not just going to stand there and take it, is he? He's going to want to try and give a bit back. And I think there was an opportunity maybe for Jack Smith to pull up the tackle a little bit earlier before it got to the point where the Wakefield player was underneath him. I thought the Wakefield player had a bit more responsibility to clear the ruck. I think the ruling is that Mike is supposed to step away to the side of him to play the ball cleanly. But then as a player in them split seconds, you are then wary of, are you moving off the mark? Is that so? And that's the thing in real time, Joe. It's all right slowing these incidents down, which many people of opposition sides have done on social media to try and create a different angle or a different argument. But in real time, the things that are going through these players' minds are just to get on with the game. That's what they want to do, get on with the game. And I think that's ultimately what Mikey was doing. I thought he's probably just a little bit petulant when he slapped, was it Smith on the floor? And he's like, do you need to do that? But that then also don't warrant the Wakefield players running in. I think Mikey then got a slap to the head as well. I don't know if it was it McMeekin, I think, running in, so one of the Wakefield players. And you go, well, hang on, you can't have it both ways as well, where I don't think Mikey needs protecting, but teams or match officials need to be wary of what the opposition team are trying to do sometimes and trying to achieve with it, what they're trying to achieve with the tactics.
Yeah, it's frustrating, isn't it? As well, you think of like rugby being a tough sport and all like honest blokes and stuff like that. And there is a bit of play acting in the petulance coming into it from both sides as well, which is annoying. But yeah, I think if there was one criticism of Mikey there, it probably is the slap, because I can understand why you've done it, but you're just giving them ammo, aren't you?
Yeah.
You don't give them anything, because the second he does it, the refs will be on him like a hawk. They'll be looking to penalise him. But I think it was a little bit childish from the Wakefield department as well, McMeekin and stuff again. Dying for a penalty, very much football-esque in it sometimes, times like that. But yeah, we moved on from it, and obviously we did end up conceding another penalty, and they went for two and got it just before the hooter. But it kind of did rile the team up as well, which I like to see. We got behind him, and obviously they're going to, he's a teammate at the end of the day. But I do think, especially with that pack, they are going to be looking after him and thinking he's our star man. If you want to mess with him, then we're more than capable of giving it back to you, which I'm sure we'll see on a few occasions once he's back from his little short-term injury.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it's just Stern Lewis, because he's got an absolutely fabulous try, didn't he? Power, guile, determination. It is evident that he's bulked up, he's stronger, but he hadn't lost that pace. He hadn't lost that ability to speed up off the side step. And the fact that he took 3 or 4 Trinity players over the line with him, speaks volumes about how much he wanted that try and how much he's got the ability to turn something out of nothing. And that is Mikey Lewis for me. That is what he brings to our side. That ability to go away from a structured play and come up with that magic play that puts us in front, or we need it at that moment in time, which we did, because at that time in the game, it wasn't necessarily going all our own way. And then Mikey just comes up with that try, and boom, we're in the lead. And that's for me the best of Mikey Lewis.
Totally agree. He just creates some out of nothing, doesn't he? And you know what? You're more surprised if he doesn't go and score in that situation. He's still. I run out of words about him, because again, I always thought his ceiling was kind of at a certain level, and then he's just exceeded it. And the fact he's only 23, and just got so much pressure on him and still seems to deliver, and again, probably the most hated player by a country mile in Super League, because he's brilliant. And yeah, it was amazing try, and then there was obviously the worry when he went down. I mean, I've seen it a few times. I think it's a hip drop personally. I think there was a few over the weekend, and it's becoming quite a sore subject. There was the one at Salford, which obviously Cam Smith's injured now for 3 months. Mikey, obviously not as bad. It's only going to be a week, hopefully. But I think we need to kind of nip it in the bud, these hip drops, because they're not doing anyone good. And you talk about the safety of the game, and that Max Jowett attempt, I just thought was pretty shocking, to be honest with you, mate. Obviously you want to protect your own players, don't you? But even that Cameron Smith one, it's gut wrenching to watch, because if that just goes the other way a tiny bit more, you could be talking a season ender there.
Yeah. I mean, you've just mentioned about how tough the sport is and how tough that these players are. Are you surprised though that Willie Peters and the coaching staff didn't override Mikey Lewis's desire to stay on the pitch and bring him off much earlier? Because even after a few minutes, it was clear he was not able to get. And I'm surprised Wakefield didn't target him more when they had the opportunity, because it was clear he was just not able to get around that pitch. And as much as you want to see that competitiveness and that desire to stay on the pitch, sometimes you need someone to make that decision for you. And I'm just surprised that he did stay out for so long.
Yeah, it was a bit daft, I thought. I understand why. And, when you listen to the post-match press, it's like, oh, Mikey said he was all right. Well, he might have said he was all right, but he was walking like he couldn't even walk, and it could have cost Rovers. They took him off eventually when they put that shift play on, probably way too late than they probably should have done, Wakey, and he slipped and couldn't tackle and had to get up on one leg. Thankfully, he is only out for a week, maybe 2 maximum, but that's the thing, innit, Chris? He could have been okay there. He could have been out for a week. But if it had been brought off straight away, what about if it had gone over it again and broke it? It was daft. Maybe it was a little bit because it was Mikey kind of thinking, oh, we can run it off and we'll kind of get him back on the field. But for 12 minutes, it was kind of like he couldn't even walk when he was getting the ball. He was walking to drop off. He didn't get involved. He couldn't kick. He tried to kick and you could see he was in pain. So yeah, it was a bit I think it went on a little bit too long. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it could have been a lot worse. Now we know, obviously, his diagnosis and the time frame is going to be out for. But yeah, I think on another day, maybe on a bit of a drier track, and maybe a team a little bit more established, you say, they'd have targeted him a lot more.
Yeah, I suppose it does highlight, although he is the reigning man of steel, he's only human as well. So there's going to be times when things don't go to plan for him. Thankfully, like you said, Joe, he's going to be available hopefully for the St Helens game, which means, of course, he misses the Salford game. He wasn't named in the squad. Willie Peters was worried that it was a recurrence of an old injury rather than it being something new. Thankfully, after a couple of scans, he's looking okay, and there's every chance that Tyrone May as well will be available for the Salford game. So it's teeing us up nicely for St Helens away. Obviously, we got Salford before that. Just to finish off on the Wakefield game, Joe, I think ultimately it was a performance that followed on from the Castleford game. It was a little bit clunky at times. The attack was a bit all over the place, especially when Mikey Lewis, well, not all over the place, that's not fair to say, but it wasn't as dynamic in terms of what we've come accustomed to. And you're going to get that when Tyrone May's not playing, when Mikey Lewis has to go off, when Mickey McAlorum has a yellow card. We saw a bit of magic from Ollie Pratt as well at the end. And let's be honest, Joe, was your heart in the mouth at that time when Jowett was going for that kick?
Yeah, absolutely. It wasn't the best. Was a very, that was probably the moment of defence, wasn't it, where it was very lapse, and I thought we could have maybe done a lot better there. I don't think Willie and the team will have been happy, but yeah, it probably wasn't Max Jowett's favourable side, but we managed to hang on. And again, even though he missed the kick, they still had that shift play at the end where they could have scored again. And fair play, I think it was Batchelor who ended up making the tackle to force an error on Tom Johnson, and they scrambled well. So even in the dying embers, when really under the cosh and literally getting that Wakey going for that knockout blow, stayed calm, stuck to our shape. Let them have the shift play, kind of stayed a bit composed, which is nice to see. So look, these games in 15, 16 rounds, you're probably not going to remember. But what you'll remember is at the end of the season, then 4 points could be absolutely huge in the playoff run, or getting a home semi again. Do you know what I mean? So these are the games where you don't win the grand final or you don't win the playoffs in round 1 or 2. But what you do is you learn a lot about your team, and we've got a bit of nous about us, haven't we? And we've got a bit about us in the fact where we'll grind and we'll take teams to corners that don't maybe want to go, and then obviously the flamboyant stuff will come in the future, hopefully. And then you mix them two together, and yeah, I'm sure we'll be all right, pal.
Yeah, Ryan Hall, I think he said it last season, the phrase, we fell in love with ourselves. And I think that's what Willie Peters will be pleased about with these early performances, is that the Robins haven't got the chance to fall in love with themselves yet. There's still things to work on. But Willie Peters will be absolutely confident that they've got the ability to improve on what they've done already. And he's already mentioned that. So we look forward to Salford. Joe, before we look forward to Salford, I caught up with Steve Till for Robins Revisited. Steve, welcome back to this week's Robin Pod Weekly as we go back to Robins Revisited. What game have you got for us this week?
I've decided on a game against Salford, and no, it's not that one. It's a happier time. I'm going to go back to the first season in Super League. Earlier in this series, we talked about the home game against Wakefield as being our first home game in Super League, which we won. But we had a kind of tough period in the middle of the season that season, and we had an important game on the 3rd of August where we played Salford, who were also struggling in the league. And it was a vital game. We'd just beaten Catalans a couple of weeks before, but then the week before we got 60 put past us by Warrington. So we were going to the old Willows ground in Salford, and there was a good following of Rovers fans there, but it was a crucial match. and the Rovers team was the usual that season, included people like, for those who remember, Andreas Bauer. There's a name from the past that stood out. And Mark O'Neill had a good season for Rovers, and he proved crucial in this game. It was Salford who took the lead early on, 6-0 lead. But then there was an incident in the 18th minute when Andy Coley of Salford, the big prop forward, I think he later went to Wigan. He looked as though he was about to score. He went for the line, reached out and dropped the ball. And the referee gave no try. But as Rovers were trying to wrest the ball from him, he held on and he wouldn't let James Webster get the ball ready for the scrum. And so the referee penalised him and gave him 10 minutes in the sin bin. And that was after 18 minutes. And that was a key period. You know, he was one of Salford's main men, and they were losing him after just 18 minutes. So after that, Rovers took the lead. O'Neill went over for his first try. He scored 2 tries. That was converted by Paul Cook. And then Paul Cook got his opening try of his Hull Kingston Rovers career, which he missed the kick. So it was 10-6 to Rovers. And then just before half-time, Salford scored a try, converted 12-10 to Salford, and we were all thinking it was such a tight game. The nerves were on edge. The fans' nerves were on edge. So we went in 12-10 down and thinking, what's going to happen? Well, I'll tell you what did happen. I don't know what Justin Morgan said to the team at half-time, but they came out and Rovers completely blitzed Salford for the next 15 minutes, scoring 3 tries. After the interval, one of them was the second try by Mark O'Neill, and then Mark Lennon went over and Luke Dyer went over. So it looked as though Rovers were comfortable, but Rovers being Rovers, they conceded 2 tries in the last 10 minutes. And instead of romping away with the game, they'd scored 30 points by then. They allowed Salford back into it. Salford scored 2 tries in the last 10 minutes. And basically, we were hanging on to stop Salford scoring again. And the score was 30-24, which is how it ended. But in the meantime, Danny Ward also, as I said, the last 10 minutes were tight. But Danny Ward also got sin binned, so we were down to 12 men at the end. He got sent off. He got binned after 78 minutes. But the relief among the Rovers fans was tangible because that gave daylight between Rovers and Salford. And in fact, a couple of weeks later, we beat Hull, that 42-6 victory that we all remember very well. And then in the final game of the season, we won that against Huddersfield by 1 point. I think it was 25-24. But the crucial game was the Salford game because it gave us belief in ourselves towards the end of the season, and it put us in pole position. And in fact, Salford were relegated. So,
yeah, and Steve, I think you're right. It was a victory that ultimately lifted the pressure a little bit off the Robins, and we saw that, didn't we, in the Derby game where they played with such confidence and saw some great free-flowing rugby. But that was because of that victory over Salford, which was a tight, intense affair. I remember being stood in the terrace in behind the sticks, packed out away end. You know, there was a big
as
well, and a game that featured not one but 2 current Hull Kingston Rovers assistant coaches.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. In Ward and
Dave Hodgson.
Dave Hodgson played for Salford in the game. Yeah. And a great occasion. And it was Justin Morgan's 32nd birthday the day before, I think. So he was celebrating. I remember speaking to him after the match, and I think we went through a bit because I'd berated him the week before. We got them 60 points put past us against Warrington. If you remember in that game, we put in 2 short kickoffs. Paul Cook put in 2 short kickoffs. One from the very first kick of the match, from which Salford scored immediately in the first set. And lo and behold, they tried it again in the next set and they scored again. So Warrington had put 60 past us. So we needed some confidence from somewhere, and we got it against Salford.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, Steve, we forget just how young Justin Morgan was at the time, and the way, actually, when you look back now, what an incredible job he did do for someone so young. And he's the first to admit he got some things wrong, but God, he got a hell of a lot right.
Yeah, he did. But another key player, he only played that one season, was Mark O'Neill. He got those 2 tries, but he was a Trojan for Rovers that year. Played really well. And then he retired, went back to Australia.
Yeah, fantastic memories there, Steve. We look forward to hearing back another game. Of course, the fancy jingle is on. Steve, I don't know if you saw the video that was on there. Did you see it?
No.
So on the VT, it was the St Helens, the victory over St Helens in the Floodlit Trophy back in the 70s, which is, of course, a very famous memory. So maybe that could be the next game for when we take on the Saints.
Well, we'll take on the Saints next week, but I've got another game in mind as well. I've got. Well, I could pick one from 3 matches that I've got in mind. I might go for the one that none of the younger generation will remember. I only just remember it. But boy, was that a controversial match.
Wow, what a trip down memory lane that'll be.
Yeah.
Joe, we've got Salford up next at Craven Park on Thursday night. What can we expect?
A tough game. I'll tell you what, though, before I go on to that, I enjoyed listening to Steve there. I remember Mark O'Neill falling. Do you remember tripping after he made that break to go and put the ball down and cook his pass to Mark Lennon? Yeah, good times, even though I was only 10, 11 at the time. But no, Salford, you know what, mate? They're going to... I'm bored of them. I can't stand them. I'll put it on record. I think they're absolute pathetic. They're the victim club, aren't they? Everyone, blah, blah, blah. And I just think they'll want a response after the Leeds game. I thought that was pretty embarrassing, especially in the defence. But they don't like coming to Rovers. Of course, obviously, we might have Mikey and Tyrone out. Hopefully, Tyrone gets back fit. So we're going to be tough there. And it's going to give people a chance, like Danny Richardson, who we'll probably speak to about soon when we go on to the team. But what I think there will be is I still think they'll be rusty. You know, there's players who have only played one game in the last 7-8 months there. And big names as well. Even the likes of Nene McDonald's and stuff, you know, a few of them played against Midlands in the Challenge Cup, but barring that, it was only a few minutes at Saints. So I think we've got to attack from the get-go. I do think you know, the usual, we've got a complete high. We can't really give Sneed a kicking game. We always seem to manage him really well at Craven Park. Sometimes not so well at the AJ Bell, but when they come to East Hull, they always seem to have a bit of a mare. So I'm hoping that's the same. But I think our pack is going to be huge. I don't think they've got the best pack. They're missing the likes of Logan Lewis, Joe Shorrocks. Obviously, he's seen his ban go from 2 games to 3 tonight as we're recording this for a frivolous appeal. Joe Mellor's still injured, their hooker. So you could even have a Chris Atkin having to go into a 13 role maybe. So I just think that's where the battle's going to be won. They've got some good outside backs. Missing former Robin Ethan Ryan. He's still a few weeks away with an injury, but what they have got is they've still got them strike players out wide. Whereas I think we can kind of get at their pack, the likes of Chris Hill, Sangare, people like that. I do think Joe Bullock, you know, I think our pack's kind of, you know, superior to them. So that's where I'd like to see us target, and then the rest will do, you know, the rest will take care of itself. But it's going to be a tough game. You know, they need a win. They're 0 from 2. Obviously, the points difference is absolutely appalling because of what they did in round 1, and rightly so. They deserve it. So they need to get back on track. What we can't do is we can't give them a bit of an inch early doors because they're a confidence team, especially with people like your Nick Arimas, your Sneeds. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile. Whereas if you get at them from the get-go, they do seem to struggle. So really looking forward to it, though. Obviously, we're a little bit more happy now. We know about what's happening with Mikey and Tyrone May coming back, so everything's not doom and gloom like it was this morning when everyone was saying he was going to be out for the season. But, you know, we haven't got him this week, so it's time for someone else to take the limelight and lead by example. And I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how we actually do without him, because we've got to do it eventually, aren't we? There are going to be times where we don't have a Tyrone May or a Mikey Lewis, but we have got a Broadbent, a Hiku, a Richardson. Time for them guys to step up and lead us around the park.
Well, that's it, Joe, because I bet nobody predicted that the Robins in round 3 would be having to play with without Tyrone May and Mikey Lewis, which is a scenario that could well present itself come Thursday night. If that scenario does present itself, who would you expect to see playing in the halves?
I expect he'll go with Hickey and Richardson. I would like Broadbent and Richardson just because Broadbent's played in the halves for Leeds and Cass. No disrespect to him, but Hickey is a much better centre and player than Broadbent at this moment in time. I think Broadbent's got a lot of potential. I think especially against Salford, where their main threats are out wide, I feel like we need to utilise Hickey in the centre role more. Broadbent can do a job. Give it to Richardson. It's Danny Richardson's. He's going to be the 7 if Tyrone May doesn't play. He's going to be the main orchestra. So I'd rather utilise Broadbent as the half-back and maybe have more of a running game because, you know, there's examples where he scored a full length against Catalan for Castleford. He's got the pace and he's got the ability to dummy and go from a first receiver, whereas Hickey is very much better out wide. So I'd like to see Broadbent and Richardson, but I think he will go with Hickey and Richardson personally if Tyrone doesn't play.
Can you envisage a scenario where Jez Litton moves in the halves and Leyland gets a spot on the bench?
I don't think Leyland's ready, personally. And I think if you do that, then you are limiting what we've spoke about for the first part of the show, whereas Jez has probably been the best 9 in the opening 2 rounds. And I think his running game, again, against a bit of an ageing, not so big, depleted pack, is going to be vital compared to him in the halves, where he will just be the kicker and he will pass it along. I understand why people want that, where if we had Parcell still, 100%, because Parcell could do 80 minutes, whereas now we have got Mickey Mack, we have to kind of play with what cards we're dealt with. We have got them two as a partnership. And I think if you take away that, you're asking a lot of Bill Leyland to make his debut on a Thursday night on Sky against Salford, where he's going to have to play a big part. I think maybe throw Leyland in against Oldham in a few weeks instead of Mickey Mack, not maybe in Super League in round 3 when we're missing some key players in the span anyhow.
Another left field solution that I saw over on X was moving Minchella into the halves with Dean Hadley going to loose forward. Dino, he can do 80 minutes. Minchella, of course, can do big minutes. I think, who did it? Was it against? It was against that lot, wasn't it, when he played in the halves. I think we're starting to move people around who don't need to be out when we're going down that road.
Yeah, we are. It's very rugby league live, isn't it? That when you've got an injury, just stick a player in there who'll do a job. But I understand why, because he plays first receiver a lot. But again, you're putting people in the positions that they're not meant to, are they? And when we have got the options, when we have got a Broadbent or a Hickey or a Richardson who can fit in there, Minchella's a 13, England international 13 for a reason. If we've got the options there ahead of him, then let's keep him in the right position. But he can play there. And if it did happen, and if it was him and Richardson and Hadley at 13, there wouldn't be a bit of me where I'd go, oh my God, this is going to be horrendous. But we have got other options, and I'd be very surprised if he put Mini at 7 or 6.
Yeah. I mean, obviously what will stand Richardson in good stead, though, Joe, is the fact he's got some game time with the Huddersfield Giants. So he's got some experience of being match ready in terms of Super League games. So these loan deals, we've seen Lee Kershaw move to Castleford. Of course, he played against St Helens. The fact that these players have been loaned to Super League sides is something that will only benefit us as much as it'll benefit the sides that they're going to.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you've got Lenny Ellis and Leo Tennyson playing for Goal in League One. You've got Zach Fishwick and Noah Booth playing for Hunslet. Noah Booth scored a 90-metre try against Bradford, and he's got 3 tries in 4, so he's one to watch as well. But no, moving back to the lads who are on loan in Super League, yeah, it is beneficial because you've got Danny Richardson, who has played against Warrington already, and he's played against York in a friendly. So he is not coming in on Thursday having to lead the team around when his last game was against London in July, was it? Before that, last year. So he'll be ready. And again, yeah, even if he has a Weldy and Mikey and Tyrone are back next week, he probably won't play against Saints, Danny Richardson. But what he can do is put himself in the window to Willie Peters and go, do you know what? If you do need me, I'm not just here to sit on the bench and take the money or whatever. I'm here to actually be a fair choice halfback, and I'm ready to be called upon. So he's a decent larker. His kicking game will be vital. I think he'll be the main kicker. Infield, obviously, Reece Martin will still go for goals, but it'll be interesting to see how they line up. But look, I'm confident. I have enough confidence in this team. Of course, we're missing 2 star players and our best player, but we've also got the capabilities elsewhere, and there has been times where in the past we've played without Mikey and won. Obviously when he hasn't probably been at this level, but we can't just think because we haven't got them two, oh, it's a loss then. Because even Bevan French was injured for a lot of last season. Field was, the year before. If we're using Wigan as the benchmark and an example, they've lost their star players over the years. They don't complain; they just get on with it and slot someone else in, and that's what we've got to do. So there's no worries from me. We've got a squad for a reason.
No, and looking at the side we put out for the last 2 games against Castleford and Wakefield, Joe, and then looking at the fact that we've got no fresh injury news, there's nothing else being mentioned other than Tyrone May and Michael Lewis. You'd expect everyone else to be pretty much the same, like for like, from the previous 2 games?
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it'll just be that way. It'll either be Broadbent or Hiku in the halves or centre, and then Richardson at 7. Obviously, if Tyrone's fit, then it'll be Tyrone and Danny Richardson and Hiku back in the centre, which of course is what we all want. But if that's not the case, then Broadbent have another shot at it, and hopefully in the halves for me.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a date now, Joe, and I want you to tell me why it's significant. So let me just dig it up. Here we go.
I'm under pressure now. I'm panicking.
4th of August, 2023.
4th of August, 2023. God, is that when we beat Salford in the Challenge Cup at home?
No, it's a bit more obscure than that.
You what? Sorry, pal.
It's a bit more obscure than that. I'll put you out your misery, Joe.
Really...
The last time Jack Broadbent played in the halves, and that was for Castleford against Huddersfield, and they lost 28-0.
Nice one, great stat for that. Thanks for filling me with confidence. Get him in centre. Get Pedder in the halves. Our New Zealand halfback.
Yeah, well, it'll all to be seen. Right, let's go with question time, Joe. So we've got plenty of questions to get through. Some we've already answered in terms of because we're around team selection. We always ask for your wonderful and weird questions, so please make sure you submit these every time that we ask for them. I think you've already answered it, Joe. Dawn Kirby, she asked about Bill Leyland. Probably just reiterating it's probably not the time from now, but Oldham in the Cup, which is just around the corner, is probably his next best opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. Oldham will be no mugs, and we won't play a really weak squad there, but I think there is a few tweaks that we could do in the Cup. But yeah, for me, I think Leyland gets his opportunity against the Ruffians, not against the Red Devils.
Yeah, and we've already spoke about this, Joe. Rich Welly, he says, Is Mickey Mac's only sin that he isn't Matty Parcell? Because I'm puzzled by some other reactions. He has been signed to do a particular job, which he's doing to his usual high standards, allowing Jez to flourish even more. So surely their issue should be Willie's game plan rather than Mickey Mac's contribution.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. We've covered it, haven't we? But again, he's not Matt Parcell, he's Mickey McAlorum, and it's we've got a different partnership now. We can't dwell about not having Parcell or Ryan all blah 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 anymore. It's 2025. This is the team we've got. New tactics, new player.
Yeah, and one question on Facebook from Adam Wadsworth. He's already said about, would you go Litton with Richardson and McAlorum and Leyland share hooker duties? Should we be without Tyrone May? He couldn't have, does it work for me? I think we've already covered that one, haven't we, Joe?
Yeah, I agree with him. I don't think, Petter's too good out wide to kind of be wasted just as a passer, as a 6, passing halfback. So, yeah, again, that's what I'd like to do. Broadbent and Richardson if there's no Tyrone.
Yeah, and then lastly, Joe, the Robins rumoured to be one of the leading sides to be playing in Las Vegas next year. Of course, we've got the game on Saturday between Wigan and Warrington. Will you be tuning in?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't watch the other games because I'm knackered on a weekend because I'm an old man now. But I'll be watching Wigan Warrington, and on that, mate, obviously, I'd absolutely love us to go to Vegas. I think it's rightly so. Rovers, Leeds, Saints, someone like that. I don't think there's any other teams that you could kind of put in there at the moment. And I know for a fact, people like Craig Franklin and stuff like that, they're all over stuff like this, aren't they? If Rovers have got the chance to go, I do think they'd go. Although I want them to kind of tell us now because I am going to Miami in September with Kieran, funnily enough, who is Rovers media guy. So we're going to Miami. So if we're going to Vegas 5 months later, I need to speak to my mum and dad about lending me some money. So please tell us soon.
There you go. There's a request to up your pocket money, Joe.
Yeah, stop me bored until I move house in about 5 weeks. So I've got a few weeks left to sponge it off mum and dad again. So they'll be happy once I'm out, but then they can start paying for my Vegas fund. Yeah,
well, do you know what? It promises to be a really exciting encounter, and I do think the club are very much in the hat for it. It's just it's basically what are the financials around it. We don't want the club are obviously looking at it to go, it's a great opportunity, but until Wigan and Warrington have come back and then reviewed what they've made out of it, what it's cost and stuff, I think it's something that's definitely on the table, and it's something that Joe, I'm very looking forward to happening if it does, because if someone said to you, Joe, 20 years ago, you've got 20, how old are you again?
I'm 28 in November, so
yeah. So someone said to you 25 years ago, Joe, if you start saving pocket money up now, you'll be able to watch Rovers in Las Vegas. You'd have probably knocked them dead, wouldn't you?
Yeah, 25 years ago, I was walking out with bloody Paul Fletcher against York Acorn or something, or Ruben Kazan in the Challenge Cup. So a little bit of a difference if I got to see him in Vegas. But again, maybe a pipe dream at the moment, but let's wait and see. And I think it'll just be great for the sport. Can't wait for it. Even the women playing Australia, good luck to them. It'll be a real good game against the Jillaroos. And then obviously you've got the Raiders, Warriors, Panthers, all them lot playing as well. Really good. And I hope we're a part of it in the next year or two.
It's funny you should mention Ruben Kazan, Joe, because that could be like that'd be like one of them expansion fixtures, wouldn't it? That we're travelling to Russia to take them on, like the Amsterdam Challenge.
Yeah, it's like the video's actually on YouTube, and Ben Fail is the ref, and he looks about 7. So you can get it on Paul Fletcher's YouTube. There's some real good videos on there, a few long season reviews as well. But against Ruben Kazan Arrows, I think they're called. Yeah, Kazan Arrows it was. And they were wearing a black kit, and that was I was a mascot that game. So
there you go, Joe. You'll be taking Steve Till's title very soon if you carry on like this.
Well, I don't think we'll be playing Kazan Arrows again. So if Steve gets to speak about that, then I think the world completely flipped on it if we're playing them again in 2025.
Yeah, huge thanks to everybody who's tuned in on podcasts on YouTube. If you're going to the game on Thursday night, live, love, laugh and be happy. Singing a song when the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing. When the red, red robin comes bob, bob, bobbing along. The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Size Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.